This is the Digital Marketing Experts Podcast episode. No, why am I trying to sound like a radio announcer? Experts in the Wire, episode 105. Gisele Navarro. Hey everyone, welcome to episode 105 of Experts in the Wire. Maybe you're trying to build links because you're doing SEO in-house or on the side or in your own business, or like me as a consultant. But link building nowadays is tough, especially in 2019, as it seems like there are more and more ways you're not supposed to build links according to Google. And there's a lot more people doing it, and there's a lot more competition for link building. Well, today, I'm very excited to have today's guest on the wire with us, Gisele Navarro. Gisele has been link building for 10 years and leads operations at NeoMam Studios. Today, we're going to chat all about outreach, link reclamation, measuring the value of link building, and how and why outreach templates can actually work. In fact, we're going to chat about one campaign Gisele was involved with where she got 6 features from only 15 emails. So, Gisele, welcome. How are you?
Hi, thank you for having me. I am good. I am enjoying a sunny day in England, which is rare. So it's all good. How are you?
I am excellent. Thanks so much for joining us. I want to start by asking, on your LinkedIn profile, you mentioned that you had a job where you were a customer care rep and then had an opportunity to work on SEO, and you fell in love with link building. What was it about link building that you fell in love with?
It's funny that you ask because I was talking about it yesterday. Let me first say that my first connection with link building was very cheap, guaranteed results in 1 week type setup. So link building at the time was basically a spreadsheet where you would create. You had a list of like social bookmarking sites and forums and article sites and blogs that had the comments open and things like that. And you had to go and you were given 3 keywords and you had to put a link in it and write something. And I filled in on a girl that she was sick. So the owner asked me, do you want to do link building today? And I had been doing customer care for so long that I had started reading about link building a lot just to try to inform, the customers. But I never knew how links were built at the agency. So when I was given this spreadsheet, I remember I spent an hour doing it, creating the accounts and then putting the forum postings and I just sent an email to the owner and said, look, this is just, you're wasting your time here. Like this is not right. So I told him about things I had read, and he wasn't convinced because he had been running the business like that for such a long time. And I was just trying to show him. So I started creating content for some of the clients and trying to, build, resources and try to get link reclamation going and things like that at the time, lots of people were doing it, but actually the majority of people building links were doing this, either super low budget, free accounts, any new social media network that showed up, you would know which one it was. So you create a profile and put a link in it and things like that, or paying for links. That was like the complete opposite. And people in the middle actually building links properly or interestingly, they were fewer. So I think that really interested me.
Was it the part where you saw people doing it a bad way and you saw a better way? Was bridging that gap part of what sort of drew you to link building? I know that's what drew me to SEO in general. Was I came into SEO around the same time, 2009, 2010, and I saw people doing all kinds of on-site stuff that was terrible. And I thought there was a better way for that as well. And that's one thing that I love. So was it kind of bridging that gap that helped you fall in love with link building?
I think so. And I'm thinking about it for what I think it is, which is just connecting the web. That's the job. It's like for a technical SEO, the job is to be able to make a site visible to the web, for it to have a space in it, and link building are just the bridges in between,
Yes.
So, and I find that so interesting. And to me, it's not just, this is the easy way. Like, I don't believe in the easy way, because what's the point? It's actually way more important and interesting than that. And that made me fall in love with it. And it broke my heart many times, the same feeling. But I guess I'm at a point now where I work hard to get to choose how I do it.
Right.
And it's the most enjoyable thing.
Absolutely. So tell us a little about NeoMam Studios, who you work with. What do they, as I understand, you build content to help attract links. So give us an example of what you might do, or a typical campaign or project with NeoMam Studios.
Yes. So you're right. We create content. I think we fit in a weird place, though, creating content. So the way we go about it is not from a building resources connected to a brand, in the sense of selling a product and then trying to get links to it somehow. We are just trying to get everybody's attention, to put it simply. So we try to create content that is connected to our client and to its business, but that is exciting and it's entertaining, or that it's educating in such a way that most people online will find it interesting enough to share. So like our vision, our mission is to create content that people want to share, and that's truly how we look at it. So just to give you an example, I don't know, like a campaign we have running at the moment, it's for a client, Angie's List, and they connect home renovation professionals with people who need them across all these different layers of potential needs that a house owner could have. And for them, we created this project where we were looking at how can we start talking about bedrooms. And we like to look at, bedroom is an area of a house where there's lots of, for them as a keyword, it's a big keyword, there's lots of things related to it within their website. And there is even an interesting category within bedrooms, which is small kids' bedrooms. Kids' bedrooms in itself, it's in publishing, it's a part of publishing that it's exciting, it's fun, and it's not as catered in terms of content. So we thought, okay, why don't we just grab a bunch of kids from all these different countries and we tell them to draw their dream bedroom. And then we work with an interior designer and a CGI render specialist, and we make it. Wow. And then we show it to them and see what they think about it. And it was so much fun, and this has been done before. Other agencies have done it, in-house teams have done it. But we had never done it, and we tried it. We really enjoyed it. And for Angie's List, it was really nice to see them engage with people on Twitter as like the brand.
Yeah. And
people are so exciting and again reaching out and saying, "Oh, this is the best bedroom inspiration, and I don't know which one I like best." And they are replying like, "Oh, I don't know either." And it turned into not just links and coverage around the keyword that is important to them, but also it leaves a positive impression with potential customers, with their followers. It creates conversation and opportunity for conversation around the brand that is completely and absolutely positive and enjoyable for everybody. And I think that's what we kind of try to do with our content.
And where does that end up? Is it end up on actually their site as a blog post and then published in many places like on social, etc.? Where does that actually end up?
So it goes on their website. It depends on the client. We are happy to work within blogs. So the blogs, the existing blogs they have. There's many clients who don't have blogs, or they have corporate blogs, so they might have resource like centers within their website or hubs. We don't do standalone URLs on a website. We just try to fit it within the client site.
Yeah.
And some clients fit it within categories. So it really depends on the client, but that's the one rule. It's going to go on their website, and we work with in-house SEO teams, so we let them decide because they know better.
Right.
And then we create the page and we pitch it to journalists and particularly journalists, because we want to get as much exposure as possible. But we will also go, and pitch relevant sites in general. So if there is a university blog that covers a topic, then we're going to go after it the same way that we would go and pitch a story to a journalist. So yeah, it's really cool and exciting.
And this brings to mind another question. And by the way, I have a lot of questions from the audience on Twitter, which are amazing, and we're going to get to in a moment and talk in detail about these different strategies you're talking about. And you don't have to give away any exact numbers. I'm just curious of a broad range. Like, what can companies or businesses expect budget-wise for something like this? I mean, I think some folks are still stuck in the days of thinking, oh, I'll do a $500 blog post and spend a couple $100 on outreach. But to my understanding, these campaigns are a bit more than that, right? So can you give us an idea of like a typical minimum to maybe maximum or something range, or whatever you're comfortable sharing in regards to budget for a campaign like that?
Budget, as in a budget to build it, or how much will we charge for it?
Let's say that, the whole thing. So what can a company, if a company is working with an outside, agency such as NeoMam, I mean, I think companies need a realistic expectation of what this budget is. And I'm sure the folks listening are curious as well. Yes.
Yeah. So I think I'm looking at our sales deck just to inform myself, because sometimes these things change. But in terms of working with us, we break it. So we always start clients on a test. And the test is one project that we're going to do just to figure out how we work together, whether we fit with each other, particularly because it's two teams working. It's an in-house team on one side and it's us on the other.
Right.
So that's why we like doing tests. And we do have a guarantee in place. So we say, right, we're going to do a piece of content for you, and we are going to aim at building a minimum of 10 links of domain rating 40 plus. And if we don't get there, then we do a campaign for free. And that doesn't mean that, you come in and we give you 10 links and we say, great, because actually it's a test. So we want to, impress, we want to do well. And for us, a campaign that gets, that minimum, it will really depend on the links. If it's 10 links and there are 10 incredibly solid links that everybody's happy about, then that's fine.
Yeah.
But if not, we always aim for more. And the price of doing a test is $14,000.
Yeah.
And that involves everything. Involves, creating a piece of content and everything that comes with it. In this case, finding kids from around the world, getting the adults to draw the thing, following guidelines, and then getting artists to make them. It's like all of it.
There's a lot of work, yeah.
It's a big job, yes.
Yeah. And I forget the name of Kane's company, but Kane Jameson, great SEO content marketer, he published a while back, I'll put in the show notes, they published exactly what it costs them to do content marketing and link building as well, if anyone's interested in that. Great. Let's chat a little bit about the difference of link building and digital PR, right? Because I think a lot of people think, oh, well, link building now, it's just good PR. If you have a good brand or good company, or you're doing good business and good marketing, you're going to build links kind of naturally. So is that really how it works, though? And what's the difference between just good, healthy digital PR and then actual link building?
Okay, so I think...
Loaded question.
Sorry, it's just a big topic. Well, I think, first of all, when I talk about this, I always try to start from the beginning and say, right, so what is PR? Before we even get into talking about what digital PR is, what is PR, right? Because many people don't know that. And so PR, it's about reputation. It's about controlling a message that is given from a brand that has been defined by a brand team and a marketing team. And it's about controlling or being on top of the conversation that is happening around your brand to make sure that everything fits within that message. And within that, there is activities that happen along the way to try to enhance the message or to, maybe clarify angles and things of the message that maybe are not clear and stuff like that. And that's PR. Not every business has PR.
Right.
Because, like a shop that sells curtains, it might be a really big shop, but it still doesn't have the situations where they have to share this big message about curtains, because that's what it is, right? It's very simple. And unless there's a reputation management issue where something bad happens and they need to do some crisis PR, there is no reason for them to even encounter the situation where they would do something like that. So that's PR. And then on the other end of that, you have link building, which is this thing we were talking about at the beginning. It's like connecting the web. And yes, it helps with SEO because connecting the web is, how you actually make people find you, and also how you make Google find you. But it's all about getting links, backlinks from sites that you choose or that you think are good for your website, just added to those sites, and reaping the value of that from a technical SEO strategy perspective. And in the middle of that, we have digital PR. And digital PR became, it is, the way I see it is, okay, fine, PR, there's a way of doing PR. So all these people that are trying to spread this message or manage the reputation of, or enhance the message around the brand, they have a way of talking with journalists and working offline, and they have a way of getting these, mentions happening. And sometimes in the online world, that doesn't translate exactly the same, because the journalists that they are talking to are different. There is a complete new generation of journalism happening, and there's actually two new generations of journalism, because you also have, right now, there's all this, social audience engagement journalists who are actually just on Reddit trying to find things that are funny. And that's a complete different level of, journalism, and how you can pitch things to them, but the way you pitch to them is very different from how you would pitch somebody about a study related to your brand, right? So I think digital PR fits the gap in there and says, right, so we are going to protect the message of a brand and spread it and get these conversations going, and we're going to do it online.
Right.
And I think in the middle of that, SEO came and said, oh, right, what about I get links along the way? That sounds great. And it does, because actually, you want that. That's feeling like completing the circle, right? So you get all the way to, and you bring them back home, and it makes sense. So I think that's what good digital PR is. But that's very different from a lot of the digital PR that is out there.
Yeah.
Because it's been done from a link building, point of view, I guess.
Yeah, and I love the two different perspectives in the way that you've defined it. So let's chat a little specifically about some link building strategies. I have some questions from Twitter and some questions off a few articles that you've written. So the first being an article about link reclamation. It's on neomam.com. I'll link to it in the show notes. It's called How to Get Big Name Media Sites to Credit Your Content with a Link. And I don't know anyone out there listening who would not want that to happen. In my mind, and I think a lot of the listeners, link reclamation is usually like somebody setting up maybe a tool of alerts to monitor for like an unlinked mention. And then you get that message and then you reach out and ask for a link. But that's not exactly your approach here. In fact, I really like your approach because it's a bit more proactive. So I'm wondering if you can sort of set the context of this particular approach to link reclamation.
Yes. So I think what's different about this is that we are actually doing it not just on top of any mention, it's on top of the usage and the mention of a piece of content that is being hosted on your website. So you're not just saying, oh, you talked about me, link to me, which could work in certain respects, but in others, it might not. Particularly if the person was talking badly about you, you shouldn't go and say, oh, link to me, though. It's like, well, maybe let that die. But, it happens. So I guess what we do is we say, right, we're going to be promoting content. We're going to try to get that content as far as possible in terms of reach. And then what's going to happen is lots of people are going to run those stories or share that content, and they will not credit, either because, one, they don't know who it belongs to, because that's the internet. Sometimes you see things, you don't know who made them. Or two, they actually found it somewhere else, so they credited that somewhere else as the source because, that's where they found it. Or three, they decided not to link because it's under their guidelines that they don't do external linking. So in both three cases, there are things you can do, I think, to turn those use the use of your content and that mention of your brand into a link. And if there is no mention of your brand, to add one into the conversation because you are the source. And that's just by asking, to get credit back to the source. And there are ways in which you can do that, as you are saying, proactively. So, there's people now that are using DMCA. They're registering all their content under DMCA. They get a certificate, and then they go and they start hunting people down, which I've not done it, and I'm keen to try it because I've just seen it a couple of weeks ago. I'm keen to try it, but I do think that when if I'm contacting a journalist, my number one concern is to try to understand what's happening and try to build a relationship. Because on the one hand, fine, that there might be a perfectly reasonable explanation as to why you didn't get a link, and you might want to hear it instead of just sending a DMCA, request.
Yeah. And
the other one is it's a journalist, so it's why not build a relationship? Why not give it a go? One of the things that people always ask is, how do you build relationships? Like, well, you build relationships through everything you do. So if you don't think about it as building a relationship, you're messing it up.
Right.
So this is one way in which you do it, right? So, so there are different ways. In the blog post, I go through them of things you can do to your images to try to not have the problem of somebody not linking, and how do you approach people, and how do you find out, in some sites, they're never going to link because they have written that they will never link. So don't even have those sites on your list of targets, because what's the point, right?
So
unless you're happy with it.
How do you get somebody how do you more ensure somebody might link to your image in an article? That sounds like a really good tip, possibly.
Yes, possibly. So if somebody doesn't want to link, they're not going to link. So there's nothing you can really do. But a few things we do is we do use a Creative Commons license footer on the images, particularly one license, which is the license 4.0 international, which says that if you publish or that if you share that piece of material, whatever that is, you have to credit the creator with a link back to the material. So what we ask for is, can you please credit with a link back to the original source of this image?
Right.
And
if
so they don't, yes.
The actual article URL, not the image URL.
It depends. So it depends on how they want to do it. So if they want to do it properly, they have to link to the Creative Commons license itself, and then they link to the image where the image has been hosted for the first time by the creator. So that is not going to be the URL of the image. It's going to be the page where it's been presented, because the page is as much as a piece of content as the images, Yeah,
and when you say a footer on the image, sorry to interrupt, I want to make sure I get the detail there. Is that text on the image, or is it a caption below the image, or what is the footer part of it?
We do it with text on the image. So at the very end, where you normally would see a logo, we have a logo on one side, and on the other side there is a Creative Commons like the legend. So
it's baked right into the image, so they have to try to not notice it almost.
Yes, and sometimes they just cut it off.
Really?
So, and then they put their own logo on it. So in those cases, we still chase them, and the tone of our emails gets a little bit more legal. And let's say one every 2 times we use that email, it works. And there's always going to be the one time when it's somebody in some country that doesn't really care about you and doesn't care about your stupid emails. So there's nothing you can do. In those cases, you give up, you didn't get the link. But that's the way of doing it. There's also some people add a note, so like a little paragraph on the page saying, "Oh, this is stating the Creative Commons license." Other people add a fair use legend saying, "Okay, you can use this, but please credit like this." I make sure that every time we get a journalist saying, "Yes, I want to share this," we send the files and we make it very, very clear. This is, please credit like this. And we also add that to the press kit. And the press kit first page, it says very clearly, please credit like this. So, yeah, I try all I can. And sometimes after all that, they don't credit, and you reach out and they come back and say, I can't link.
Right.
I'm sorry, I can't link. My editor doesn't let me link, and I can't link. And in those cases, it's on you. You could ask, take down the content. We don't, because relationships.
Right.
You never know. Journalists move jobs. If they like your content now, they might like it in 5 years. So there's no reason why to be a nasty person.
Yeah. So I like all of that. And before I move on to outreach, so to tie a bow on the link reclamation, it's really about putting this into the process of the entire content campaign from the beginning, right? Rather than reacting later on.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, I like that. So let's chat about outreach. And this brings me to the first question from Twitter. And then we're going to chat about an article that you wrote on outreach as well and using templates. But Alex Quay on Twitter says, how do you prioritize your outreach targets? For example, most likely to give a followed link, the contextual relevance of the site versus domain authority, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. So, I mean, the thing is if it's a list of prospects, they are all a priority to me. If they're not, they wouldn't be on my list, period. I don't have I kind of don't have the top ones and the lesser ones. And in terms of how do I build that list and what do I take as, the key elements of a website? Well, first of all, it has to make sense, right?
Relevance.
Particularly, it has to be relevant to to the piece of content that you have, number one. And second, it has to be, if the piece of content is not relevant to your client, then you have a problem.
Right. So
you would not be in a situation where you have a piece of content and try that is irrelevant and you get a relevant link. That's quite unlikely. So I guess, first of all, it has to be relevant to the content and it has to make sense for them. So if you have a video and it's a website that it's just, academic journals and they don't share videos, and you don't have anything else to offer, then maybe it's not right for them.
Yeah.
And you could get in touch and they might share it on social media, and that's great. But sometimes, that applies to the person you're going to pitch to next, right? So if you're pitching something that is visual, you want to pitch it to a person that is going to look at it and say, oh, I share galleries often, or I've shared images, I like photos. If you're pitching to a person that just, has press releases copy pasted and doesn't use images, you're pitching images to that person, there's no point.
Right.
So the same goes for the website. It has to make sense in terms of topic. It has to make sense in terms of format. And you know what a good website looks like when you're on it. Like the idea that, fine, I'm looking at our blog and it has a DR rating of 73. That's a good website. Now, if you're a competitor of NeoMam and you're pitching me an infographic because I wrote something about promoting infographics, my site with 73 domain rating is not good for you.
Right.
So that's why, to me, metrics and whether I give no follow or do follow links, or what do I do with, anchor text, and whether I add my links at the first paragraph or the last one, it doesn't matter if the site's irrelevant. And once you're in it, look around. If a good site is a good site. There are good sites that are new that just have low domain rating, and there are great sites publishing great content with great writers who are, exploding on social media, or are just solid, good websites that have a readership, that are leaving comments on them. Are you not going to get a link from that site that obviously is growing because it gives, it's like a DR 22?
Right.
Probably you shouldn't. So my number one tip would be, don't put any site on your your targets list that is not a priority to you. If you don't look at that link and think, well, what if I get it, although I don't care, it shouldn't be there.
Right.
And the second one, to choose a website, first, it has to make sense to the content if you're pitching content, or to you if you are just pitching yourself as a resource to be added to that website. And once you're in it, think about you as a user. Is that a good website?
Right.
Is there anything to read there that is useful in any way? Like, is it updated regularly? Does it have, comments? Do people engage with it? And then metrics.
Yeah. And is there a typical size of an outreach list for a campaign? Or do they vary? Do you have some very small, and then do any ever get into like the hundreds, or What's an average range?
I wouldn't know average. I think it depends on the person. So my team, they all work very differently. The one thing we do try is we always try to launch with at least a minimum of 50 sites. Now, when our first round of outreach is the most important because it's where we figured out who likes it the most. We always try to go after as many different types of websites that align with the content and with the client as possible. And we just add maybe like 5-6 sites of each of these publishing verticals to our list. And that builds our initial 50 to 70 maybe list. And then within a week, we start seeing, oh yeah, these type of sites are picking it up. These ones are not. These ones are. These ones are not. And based on that, we add more sites. So our list might start in 50 and might end in 250.
Right.
But we do it as we work
kind of
and as we
incrementally.
learn. Yeah. From what works, really.
So I think this segues well into talking about using templates. You're actually in favor of templates. And I think a lot of people don't like them because they fear that their outreach may be generic or not unique, or which is just another way to say generic. Good podcast hosting, Dan. But what is it that you like about templates, and how can people use them in a way that's effective?
Well, the way I see it, first of all, I get it. Because when most people think about templates, they think, hi, Dan, I really love your podcast. Enter name here. I was wondering, I was going past the park and I saw this thing as like this random rambling, and eventually they pitch you something, or even worse, they just start saying they love you and then they just pitch you 3 articles that they already wrote or something.
Yeah.
And the thing about writing an email to send to somebody else is that you have to think about the fact that you're sending it to another person. And when you are actually trying to build relationships with every single thing you do, that's the best. That's the perfect. That's like the opening door moment. So all the time you spend building your piece of content, preparing your list, and all that, you are overly excited, but nobody else other than you and your client has seen what you're doing.
Right.
The moment that you send those emails, you open the door to the world and say, hey, look at what I've made. Look at what we spent 3 months doing. So actually writing the pitch it's the most exciting part. And a pitch is just a story. All you're saying is you're sharing a story. And it's, that's why I like thinking about writing my pitches as, it's a good book, very condensed, short, good book. And people, when they open my pitch, they are entertained, they're drawn in. And it doesn't matter that it's a pitch because, again, I did my prospecting right. So those people are the right people.
Right.
They open my email because they have been on my list because I decided that piece of content is perfect for them for some reason, whichever that is. So they already are into it. And all I'm doing is I am slowly sliding them into clicking on that link and looking at something that I know they're going to like. And hopefully I'm not exaggerating, so they are disappointed when they click, or I'm not so boring that they never clicked. They leave,
How much in a template is being pulled in automatically, or so their name obviously and things like that? And how much of the template is each person you're pitching getting the same thing word for word? What sort of things are being swapped in and out as variables?
I think it depends on the campaign. So, for example, a piece of content that has maybe a more general appeal, and it's about, I don't know. For example, let's say it's a map of the world that says how many holidays people get around the world. Mm-hmm. Something like that.
That sounds like a cool piece of content.
Yeah, it actually is. So with that piece, you can just pull down. First of all, it's like you're talking to a person, right? And they want to take holiday. They need a holiday. They're probably thinking about a holiday or a vacation, how you call it in America. They're thinking of a vacation right now. So you just talk to them about vacations. Mm-hmm. And you probably need a vacation. And what was the last time you had one? And how many days do you even get? Did you know that in this other country, they get 2,000 days that are cumulative and they're all paid for or whatever. They're not 2,000, they're way less. But and that's interesting to most people because most people want to take a vacation. So what you swap in those type of pitches is the name of the publication, but making sure that you are writing it exactly like they present it.
Right.
So sometimes people don't think about this and they go and say, oh, whatever, like there are certain brands or like if you have evolving SEO and it's a difference in the way in which I formatted. There's the way that you use and the way that anybody would use. So I have to be paying attention to that. So then they know in such a small detail, oh, she's seen my site.
Right.
So you have a compelling story. You are reaching out to the right person. You can use a full template, just changing the name and changing the name of the website, and you get links. Then there's other types. So, for example, if you have a piece of content that has potential to be shared in different regions or areas. So we did a campaign last month, which was the 50 most endangered species in every state of America. And we made this amazing series of posters. And we were pitching different regional media. And so then we had parts of the pitch that were very similar. So, for example, the closing is always the same, which is like, "Hi, do you think that would this be something that fits your site? Let me know when I send you a press kit and this and this and that." That is always the same; it doesn't change.
Right.
But then we'll personalize the subject line a little bit. So this is the most endangered species in state or something like that. And then we would probably within the body, we would just tailor that one species and give some information about it. And then we just use, drop-down menus to select when we're sending the emails. And we make sure that our list is organized. So we're only hitting up to everybody from Alabama. And then we move on to the next state. So it's easier to use as a template and you're not likely to make mistakes.
Yeah.
But again, for you to be able to do that, first you have to have the story. First you have to have, how do you connect to that person? And what's about this piece of content? If I just say, oh yeah, there's 50, these are the 50 species, link, I don't care about it, whatever, it's just a template. You don't mean anything to me. That's very different from sitting down and spending an hour writing the proper email, writing an email that excites you. And that's kind of what I try to teach my team. Yeah. Of spending that time. And that's the fun time. That's the time when you actually get to be a writer and like it's exciting. It's, I don't know.
Figuring out how to connect with somebody. There is a lot of fun in that. I totally agree. So you have a part in the article, which I really like. It says, choose a publisher's headline as your subject line when following up. And this was what I was referring to earlier when I said that you got 6 features from only 15 emails. But I didn't quite fully grasp this part of the article here. So when you are choosing a publisher's headline, just break that down a little bit. Like, are you choosing a headline that a publisher you're reaching out to has used or that they have seen before? And how does this part of the process actually work?
So in this particular case, I say this when sending follow-ups. Most people follow up. They will follow up maybe 5 times, but their follow-ups are, have you seen my email? Have you seen my email? Have you seen my email?
Yeah.
The way I like to do follow-up is I only follow up once, maybe twice in very specific cases, but if not once, and I send a new pitch. I write a new story. And something that I like doing, by the point we're following up, almost every time we already have links that have gone live. So we go through the ones that are live and we look at the headlines and we pick one and we use that as a subject line. So it's exactly about our content. Now, there's this is the whole point of this is what digital PR people are going to recommend, right? So they're like, oh, think like a journalist, write like a journalist. So it's completely that. It's just that it's something that is already been approved by, somebody we pitched to. And the people on our list are all very similar.
So you're taking the headline from an article where a journalist accepted your pitch, used the story. That is very clever.
Thank you.
Yeah, I like that. And so in your example, you use that headline in the subject of the email. Yes. And that's how you got 16 features, 6 more features from 15 emails. Yes.
And sometimes other things that you can do is, well, first of all, journalists are good writers, and you might be really good, but in most cases they are way better than you. So looking at how they talked about your content is a great way for you to write your follow-up pitch.
Yeah.
And again, look at what did they, say, what did they find interesting about it, and use that, in your pitch. And then the other thing is, some publishers, they tend to use certain words a lot, or there's the publishers that would talk about a photo gallery, and then there's publishers that are going to talk about just the gallery, or just images, or a slideshow, or use their words. So if you're pitching something and they have a slideshow, you say, and slideshow, these are the 50 most endangered animals in every state, slideshow. And for others, it's going to be a photo gallery, because that's how they call them. And internally, that's how they call them.
Right.
So you're going to, touch a part of their brain that gets tickled all the time by their editors, and it makes sense, right?
Yeah.
So
I love that.
Yeah.
So one more outreach question from Twitter. And if I butcher anybody's name, I apologize. But this comes from Andrew Sogstrup, I believe is how you say your last name, Andrew. Thanks for the question. He asks, what are 3 good examples of yes questions to round off an email to get a dialogue started? And you could give 1 or 2 or 3, anything that comes to mind. And I think what he's referring to is something I do a lot in content, is I open an article by asking a question that the reader will say yes to. So psychologically, they want to continue reading the article. So I believe there's probably something similar in the world of outreach.
Yeah, I saw that he asked that to Brian Dean Backlinko, and Brian was saying, what is that? And then he said, oh yeah, these are yes ladders, which is how I knew them. Mm-hmm. So I guess there's advice against asking questions in certain parts of pitches, and this comes from email marketing, I think, because I think I read it from email marketing. Being, using a question in the subject line, there's a chance of them saying no, so you don't want to do it. You want to just have, a statement or something. So I guess I don't really think about it too much. If I can think of a question that I think is going to get the point across of what I want to say, I use it. Now, throughout the email, I don't think about them as yes or no questions. I just want questions, because I want the reader to engage with me. Yeah. And it's really hard to read a question and not have some part in your brain saying yes, no, maybe. Like, it just happens. So I do, even if it's just the last question, instead of saying, let me know if, and this is something that has changed since I wrote this blog post. I'm reading this speech, by the way, on my blog post about personalizing emails, and they're terrible. I should change them because they're old, and I don't like them anymore. Anyway, something I changed since then is, instead of saying, being super passive and saying, oh, let me know if you want to run this and I can send you, I just ask them, do you think, that this looks at something that you would like to write about? And they might say no, but then they're going to get back to me and say, actually, I wrote about it already, or I wouldn't write about that. They're just answering my question that I asked them. And then I would be like, oh, what would you write about? Oh, I have this other project, or we're working on this other thing. You build a relationship. So I like asking questions at the end. And then along the way, sometimes, depending if I'm sharing a lot of information, I might use a question just to re-engage their brain and say, right, come back to me. And, particularly before sharing the live URL, which is how we call the URL where the content is shared. Sometimes I would give a lot of information and then be like, intrigued, have a look. Right. And it just makes you like, maybe, I don't know if I'm intrigued. Okay, have a look. Right. So that's kind of how I think about it. I don't think about it from a point of, you said yes, so that means you're going to say yes. What I do that is like that is actually a technique that is called foot in the door, that comes from social psychology. And basically it's this idea that if you ask for something very small that is very easy for the other person to say yes to, and they say yes, then the likelihood of them saying yes again, if you ask for something else that maybe it's a bit bigger but about the same topic. So an example, like the one study that was done that most people know about, is there were these housewives, and they were given some cleaning products to try, and they would have somebody dropping them on their house and then picking them up, and they try them. And then they got somebody coming and saying, oh, now we want to get a person in your house using the product. And they did the same and asked just that question to another group of housewives. And the ones that had tried the product before and had already had that, first little yes, they were more likely to actually let somebody that they didn't know in their house to use the cleaning product, which was a link in between both requests.
Yeah.
So I like to think about that as the way in which I define whether a subject line, it's the right subject line. So the way I like to think about it is, okay, my subject line is my foot in the door. If they say yes, it's because they like this.
Right.
They're on it. Then my email and me getting for them to look at my content and link to it is not such a big request because they know what they're getting into, right? I'm not misleading them. I'm not saying, oh, something you might like, or this is hilarious, or hi, question, or a fake reply, or anything like that. I'm not faking or doing anything weird to get them to open.
Right.
I'm just saying this is what this piece of content is. I even say, oh, it's a slideshow, and it's about your state.
Yeah.
And it's a tip, by the way. And then if they are interested in an endangered animal in their state, and there's a slideshow involved, when I show them a slideshow and say, do you want to share it? It's not such a big, shocking request, right? So they're more likely to be like, yeah, actually, I do want to share it. And yeah, I guess that's how I look at this yes situation of I want them to already engage with it in a positive way. So then when I ask for something else, they're like, oh, actually, I really enjoy opening this email now that you say it. I might want to see the content.
Yeah. I had the foot in the door happen to me firsthand. I was living in Florida this past February, and I was stopped on the street by somebody at an organization that was taking donations to help like starving children or something like that. And she stopped me and she used really great psychological marketing techniques. And I knew everything that was happening as it was happening in real time because I've seen and used all of these. So I'm kind of like analyzing what she's asking me. But she stops me and she says, do you care about children? As the opening question. And of course, you're not going to say no about that. So I said yes. And then she said, well, then she started going to her pitch. And I knew exactly what was happening with that. So
yeah, and that's the same idea of pitching a piece of content. It's like, I want that same situation to happen. It's like, I want them to know what I'm doing.
Right.
I don't need to give them an entire introduction to tell them that I read their article about this thing and I really liked it. And by the way, I also like skiing. I saw on your profile that you went to, the Alps last month, and I love the Alps, by the way. And I have this piece of content. It's like, I don't need to do any of that because, if anything, I'm not wasting anybody's time. And we will talk about skiing when we're friends, which we're not right now, you know?
Yeah. I think that's funny, the trying to make a connection thing. I get a lot of pitches for people to be on this podcast, and that's probably the number one mistake that a lot of them make. So maybe I'll start getting some better pitches. Let's chat a little bit about journalists. I think a lot of people, there were a couple questions on Twitter of people curious about how to sort of work directly with journalists. So Alex Quay says, what advice would you give for building a speaking of ongoing relationships, successful ongoing relationship with journalists? Yeah.
So, well, I think I gave one piece of advice, which was every interaction counts. So it starts from sending the right piece of content to them. It's if you're constantly pitching somebody and they consistently not get back to you, stop, right?
Right.
Stop. There's no, they're not. And if you're tracking your emails, which you should, and you see that they're not opening your emails, what's going to happen is you're going to get your, if you're emailing from your own like email address with your domain, you're going to get your domain marked as spam. And if that journalist writes for Hearst, that's the domain of all the emails that all the journalists that write for any publication with Hearst uses, and Hearst bans your domain or marks it as spam, then it's like
you shot yourself in the foot. Yeah.
It's just terrible,
Yeah.
So, and I know about this because I had this happening.
Right.
So, yeah. So I think a big part of it is valuing the other person's time. I always say to my team, they don't have the obligation to link to you. They don't have the obligation to even talk to you, the same way that anybody wouldn't, and value their time, like the same way that you would like to have your time valued by people who will not pitch you, that are not even spending 2 minutes to talk to you as a person,
Right.
So I guess valuing their time, and that aligns to not sending anything that doesn't make sense to them. When you do get into a situation where they do want your content, instead of immediately right away start pitching them every single thing that you have, first of all, ask them, do you want me to keep you in the loop? They say yes. Are there any topics in particular you're interested in? Keep a record of all this stuff.
Yeah.
And every time you share something, keep a record of the things they tell you, because they will say things like, oh, do you have PNGs? We can't use JPEGs. You're like, right, okay, so I know that to you, every time I'm sending you a PNG, and it's a PNG version, and I will even go and create one, and it's going to be called your name.
Yeah.
So when I send it to you that I do that just for you,
right.
because you're that important to me. And helping them when they need help. So they will need more information. They will need, additional research, sending them as much information as possible so they have a good foot, because journalists have to pitch their stories to their editors, right? So if you just send them something random and that's it, and then they have questions to you and you're not online, and then you don't get back until tomorrow, you probably lost your place in whatever calendar that journalist had.
Yeah.
But also, they need to build up the story to be able to pitch to their editor, so that the editors will say yes to what they like that you share with them. So I think valuing everybody's time, because their editors are their bosses. So, being ready for questions, having additional research, being able to explain what you've done, and most importantly, don't lie to them. Don't give them any piece of content that is not well researched, that doesn't have solid sources, that could get them in trouble.
Right. Yeah.
Because that's like, we had it happening. We had a piece of content that the client didn't want it. They were very worried. It was called, it's like a guide of where can you drink tap water around the world. It's just an infographic, yeah? Mm-hmm. And the client was a travel client. It was perfect for them. And their legal team was horrified. And we used data from the CDC. So it was the most authoritative piece of content we could have done. And we even changed, in the header, we did feedback on Reddit, and people on Reddit started arguing and saying, oh, in my country, you can't drink water, and I've been drinking since I was a kid. And then we realized that some Reddit users would say, no, but it's the data is from the CDC, it's not them saying it. So we made a tweak to the design and added at the top a little piece of additional information saying, according to the CDC. And in the end, that piece of content, it still gets links, because the CDC has not done any other study. And it got one journalist from Lifehacker, I think it was, and the guy got grilled, and he went and argued with every single person and said, this is from the CDC, these are the sources. Imagine if that wasn't the case.
Right.
And he got hundreds and hundreds of people from all over the world attacking him and saying, you're spreading lies, and you can't come back and say, actually, this is good, solid research. So with that journalist, he now works at the New York Times, and I have him on Instagram, and we talk. And he messaged me when he left Lifehacker and connected me to the new editor, and that's the relationship. Because when the time came, the piece of content was solid. And along the way, I made sure to only send things that he would like, to always listen to his feedback. If there was something I wasn't sure about, always ask him, not assuming, giving him additional research along the way, Yeah. That's how you build a relationship.
I love that. There's another great question about journalists from Mark Alves. He wants to know, what are best practices for unveiling a large data set and accompanying findings? Should you provide embargoed access to one or more journalists? I really like this question. How do you approach that?
Okay, so in terms of using data, I'm not an expert. I know that you had Mark Johnstone here, and he probably is way better at answering this question. I think he said something about looking at the numbers and trying to find what touched you, what shocked you, what was the part of that data set that actually got to you.
Yeah,
and then that's kind of where you start, right?
Yeah.
But to me, the way I translate that into how I talk to my team is data is just data. It's just, in most cases, just numbers. Maybe there's dates in it, maybe there's quantities, but it's just numbers. And what you need to do is you have to turn that into information. And for you to turn that into information, you have to frame it. So I know there is a side of data usage for building links that is just about making as much data available as possible, and then you get hooks, and then you draw stories and you pitch that to journalists, and that works for some teams. But the way I see it is, to me, that's incomplete information. So for the internet, as a user, I'm not being given all these hooks. I show up with this piece of content, and it's just a large data set about stuff that I don't understand. And there's no information or introductions to anything. And nothing has been digested for me. That's not a great experience as an internet, user. So that's why I like to always try to add a layer of information, which sometimes it might be the way in which you visualize it. So if you have something that has to do with, I don't know, prices, and you want to show how shocking something is, and then you just use the visualization as a way to do that, instead of just putting a chart with lots of prices and making this one red. It's like, well, how big is it? But show me. There's this really good book called Good Charts.
Good Charts.
Yes. It's from Scott Berinato.
Okay, we'll find it and link it in the show notes. Yeah.
Yeah. So he does data visualization for Harvard Business Review, and he's amazing. And there has this one example which I really like, and he showed how, there's lots of pieces of content out there about how expensive beer is in different ballparks around America.
Yeah.
And in general, they're just, they're charts, and they show you this is really expensive. Look how expensive. And he was shocked by the price in, I don't know where, I think New York, but I don't know.
Probably New York.
Yeah, I expect so, but I don't know. So in one particular ballpark, it was incredible, the price. It just, for the same price, you could buy like a 4-pack.
Yeah.
I don't know even how many 4-packs,
Yeah.
So he ended up, when he visualized the data set, he had the chart, and then outside of the chart, far away to the right, there was the data point of that one stadium, and that makes a point, right? And you are actually digesting the information. The person that sees that doesn't have to go through a list of prices to figure that out. They just look at it first sight, brain picked it up, you know it forever.
The visual is what's powerful there, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's how we like to use data, to try to visualize it, to analyze it, to give a story around it that turns it into information and not just a bunch of numbers. So that's what I would say about that. The way in which you do it, listen to the podcast with Mark Johnstone.
Yeah, and I'm gonna
he talked about it.
We'll link that episode in the show notes as well. I'm going to twist Mark Alves' Twitter question a tiny bit. I think what he might be asking in part is, do you, no matter if it's data, info, a story, whatever, do you pitch journalists like exclusives ever? Or when you're doing a campaign, are you just sending it to everyone all at once?
We will have some exclusives, but the problem with exclusives is that it's a word that in publishing means, it could mean we are the only people who have it. So you have to be careful to who you pitch exclusive to. So if you pitch exclusive to Four Doors as a travel publisher, that means they have it.
Right.
And if not, they're not going to be happy about it if other people have it. So then again, you didn't build a relationship there if you do that. So I think there's certain publishers that are more likely to want exclusive. So something silly, but Entrepreneur and Inc. Magazine, they compete against each other. If you pitch Entrepreneur first, Inc. Magazine might not want it. If you do it the other way around, Entrepreneur doesn't care. They want it right now. They're going to pick it up because Inc. has it. But there are little things like that along the way you kind of learn of who wants an exclusive. Journalists will tell you as well. Sometimes they will say, oh no, is it just for me? And maybe you already did your outreach and it's not. And you say no because you don't lie, because they can go on Google and find out. So you don't lie. And you say no. And then you ask the question, do you want me to reach out next time with an exclusive? There you go. That's your exclusive.
Right.
And for some publishers that we have long-standing relationships with, we always give them first tips on the content that, aligns to the things that they like. So that's how we use exclusives. We don't do it every time. We had a time when we used to do it every time and select a few publishers out of like the list, like prioritize.
Yeah.
And say, oh, we're going to send some exclusives. And that adds a lot of stress because you're like, oh, they haven't replied. What should I do? I have 2 more days. Should I give it to this other person? And then both of them come back and say, I want it. And you're like, oh, damn, now it's not an exclusive anymore. So that's why we just only use it when we know that either that's the only way to pitch a publisher because they told us, or because it's a relationship that we have and we want them to be the first ones to break the news.
I like that. So you mentioned infographics a little bit, and we're chatting about visualizations. Jason Thibault, Thibault, I should know his name. He was on my show. He was on the podcast.
On your show.
Yeah. Apparently, I have a very short-term memory. And his show is all about building links with a stock photo library, which is very interesting. I'll link to that in the show notes. But he wants to know, how has link building via infographics changed in the last 2-3 years? Or if you want to put a twist on that, what's your take on building links with infographics, or maybe just your thoughts in general?
So I think everybody saw what happened, right? So I don't need to explain how over a period of 2-3 years, and suddenly every topic has at least one infographic about it. Yeah. And in many cases, they are not really very, reputable sources, and maybe even it's not very well written or designed or whatever. So which meant that actually it became a very, inexpensive way of creating content, potentially for links, because for a period of time, there were editors that they love the infographics and they wanted infographics all the time. Yeah. And when Pinterest came up, infographics were like the best because Pinterest loves infographics. They still do. They pin lots of infographics. So then there were lots of editors and journalists that were in love with them. So I think that kind of fueled the side of the industry that started creating and generating lots of them. And they were something that you could sell a client and it was a real thing. Right. It wasn't just, you could say, well, we didn't get any links, but you have an infographic now. There you go. It looks more expensive than just an article, so I can charge you more for it. Right. So because of that, there were lots of them done, and that saturated the market. And along the way, we have been, the infographics was like our one format that we always worked with. And we didn't stop, really. We just kept producing infographics. What happened was that we had to cut through the noise. So that made us way better at outreach, for example, or prospecting. But by the time that they clicked on it, the sources are on point, the topic is on point, the design is on point. It's modular, so journalists can cut them and make them into galleries if they want to. We thought about everything, and the many teams did that. And I think throughout those last 3 years, I think it was like a survival of the fittest type thing with infographics. And now I think we're at a point where for certain verticals, we're done. So I see them as they die. Yeah. I think travel died very, at least almost 2 years ago. To a point, it died just because it's an infographic. Sometimes that's the one reason why they wouldn't share something, which made us as a team explore other content formats, which was the best thing that happened to us. Being worried that we couldn't get links was like the best thing, because we explored and we got so much better at what we do. So I recommend this to anybody. If you feel that it's not working, then try something else. Don't just get stuck. So I think with travel, it's not working that well. I think with food, in the food sector, same thing. I think in the home sector, garden, before you used to do an infographic, a really nice one with, gardening, a calendar for herbs and whatever, and it would do amazingly well, as we have plenty of. But now we got to a point where there's been so many done, and actually people now want to see photos of things. They want to see real things. They went through a period of wanting to see videos of things, and now they just want to see photos of things. And I guess that it got food right away, because food, an illustrated piece of meat is not as appealing as a photo, right? Yeah. Or for vegans, it's not appealing at all. Yeah. But I guess that's what happened. So now we are seeing certain industries, the center verticals are kind of coming off them. So it's getting harder. So you have to try new things. But if you do have a topic or a piece of content that you think infographic is the best format for it, then you should definitely use an infographic, because that's how we turn into every piece of content was an infographic to only infographics are infographics, because infographics are a type of content. It's a format. So you shouldn't use it for everything, but for certain things, it's the best format. And if you do a good job prospecting, then you shouldn't have a problem with it.
Yeah, I like that. So we have time for a few more Twitter questions before we wrap things up. So one is, I'm very interested in this as well. It's about tools. So I'm totally not going to get this name. Vitalia Bay, I think, maybe. I don't know if you know how to pronounce that.
No,
Vitaja.
I don't.
I think that might be it. Vitaja, perhaps. So
I should probably have the questions open.
Yeah. Well, she wants to know if you can name 3 main tools, or 2, 3, 4, however many tools that you're using when you're doing outreach on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah. So if you've seen me speak, or if you've read me on Twitter and things like that, you might know that I don't like tools. I'm not a tool person. Now, I don't like tools in a particular section of your career, which is at the beginning. I think at the beginning, just getting somebody new through the door and hook them up into a bunch of tools, you're just teaching them how to use tools. You're not teaching them how to do the job. Right. So that's one reason why I don't like, for example, prospecting tools or media database or things like that. That being said, there are tools I really like and I do recommend. One of them being Yesware. I wrote about it a lot, so I can give you a link so you can add it on the page. I love Yesware for tracking emails, but also for working with templates, because as we talked about before, we use templates. My team uses templates. We share templates. So Yesware is great for that. It eliminates a part of outreach which is completely unnecessary and completely stressful, which is the uncertainty. You know if people open your email, you know how many times, you know if it was sent around an office, if you should follow up sooner. And yeah, it also tells you how you're doing, which, you know, templates do better. You have reporting. But I think in the day-to-day of the person doing outreach, knowing if they saw the email, that's just, it frees you up. So Yesware, and then there's a combo. I like Hunter for finding email addresses on a domain when I'm sitting inside of a website. So it just sits on your browser. It's a very simple, unintrusive tool that you just click on, and it just shows you what email addresses seem to be connected to that domain based on how they've been used on the web. But the thing with Hunter is, even though, you know, it gives you lots of stuff, and some email addresses are going to show as verified, sometimes there's others that they're not verified, and you have to click to see whether they're deliverable, and it tells you too risky. And what does too risky mean? Should I give up? So before I give up, or I just add it and stay hopeful, I use a tool called verifyemail.org. Where I can just drop an email that I think is too risky and see what's going on. Sometimes it's just a catch-all and that's not a bad thing, or sometimes, you know, it really is an old user that got deleted that still shows up somewhere, but it's not available anymore. So I like to combine those two. And I've got a new tool, which is very exciting to me because I don't use tools. And I'm writing a blog post about it.
Nice.
So it's going to be live next month. And it's a media database, and it's called Muckrack.
Muckrack. Oh, I think I've heard of that tool. Yeah.
Yeah. It's not one of the famous, you know, big Gorkana type things. And it's not like that at all, actually. It's mainly connected to Twitter, which is a place where most journalists who would share the content we produce, because they are maybe like a different generation, they are all on Twitter. So it's a great tool because it's constantly syncing new information. And journalists use it sometimes as portfolio. So they actually update information there. They put their email addresses, particularly when they're freelancers. They put their clippings of their favorite articles, so you know exactly what type of stuff they like. It's just great.
Yeah.
And the customer service is amazing. Any issues I've had, sometimes you find an email address and actually it doesn't work and it bounces, and you can just message them and say, hey guys, can you update this? And they try their best. And in most cases, they update it within 48 hours. You might have seen them on Twitter. They reach out to people and ask. So I really like it. But as with every tool like this, where you can very easily build a list of people without checking them out, it can waste you a lot of time if you don't know what you're doing. And it can give you false hope of, oh, well, look at all these journalists. And actually, you can very easily build a list of 200 sites that are the wrong sites. So that's why I'm writing an article, to try to give some of the tips. We did a little workshop with everybody. So at first I tried it myself. I liked it. I offered it for test to my team. They tested it for a while. One of the guys doesn't use it that much. He doesn't like it, but we still share with each other the tool, the tips of things that we do and how we use it. So I have a few little, hacks that I'm going to share. But I guess in terms of if whoever is asking, be careful with tools like this, tools that very quickly, without you using your brain, do something for you. Because even, yes, we're giving you open rates and allowing you to use templates and stuff like that, if just having an open rate versus a reply rate on its own doesn't mean anything. You have to use your brain to figure out what to do with that. Mm-hmm. So you keep learning as you use the tool. It's a tool that continuously teaches you about your job, and not a tool that you keep learning about how to use the tool. So to me, Ahrefs is a great example of that. It's like Ahrefs is a tool that it makes you better,
right.
At what you do, because it gives you all this information that then your brain starts firing up everywhere and be like, oh, wow, look at this. This is on its own. If you don't know what you're doing, it's just a place where you can check backlinks.
Right.
And maybe you can find content that got links or something. Yeah. But if you know what you're doing, it's amazing. It superpowers you. So I think look at tools that way. Don't look at tools as, how can it be the easiest way for me to do my job? And the least amount of brain power. Because if you're doing that, then you shouldn't be doing this job. Find a job you like, and you're going to enjoy it a lot more,
Yeah. You can definitely learn a lot from using tools if you use them in that perspective. So yes. I have one question about measuring the value of all the stuff we've been talking about with link building. It comes from Peak District SEO. I'll kind of reframe it a little bit, but he's kind of asking, he or she, I'm not sure, what would you call a good campaign? You create an article, you do outreach. How many links are you aiming for, if a certain amount? I know you mentioned a 10 minimum earlier. And what quality level you're looking for the links in terms of DA and trust flow and all that kind of stuff. And then I'll add a second part to that and ask that when you're doing these link building campaigns, are you just measuring the links and the quality of those links, or are you then trying to tie that back to any other metrics, whether it be rankings or traffic or anything that connects it back to the business?
Okay, so first part, how do I know if a campaign was a good campaign?
Yes.
Sorry. I would say the way I look at it is if it continues to generate links after I'm gone.
Interesting.
So if I'm pitching a piece of content and every single link I'm reporting, it's the link that I went and chased for individually through outreach, I might meet a guarantee that way and be very unhappy about it. But that means it's a campaign that is not a good campaign, right? Because we spend a lot of money and a lot of time creating that content. And if I have to chase 10 people to please link to it, that's not a good piece of content. Right. So the way we like a campaign that we look at and we say right away, this is going to be a good campaign, is when within a week we got, 10 whatever links and 10 more that we didn't even look for. Huh. And those are campaigns that over time continue to generate links. So I like always updating reports, like all reports, I'm constantly updating them to show clients new links. Mm-hmm. First of all, because it educates me on what really works long term. And second, because, it makes you look good as an agency. So I do it. Yeah. But I think that's when you see the value of piece of content. Like if the moment you stop outreach, the link stopped, then that's a dead page on your website.
Yeah.
And you have some links to it. And you know what happens eventually? You're going to be redirecting it.
Right.
Particularly if it's just a piece of content that has nothing to do with your business, which sometimes it's how people they build links with a piece of content that has nothing to do with the business, and then they have a page about nothing on their site that has 10 links, you know?
I really like that. Yep.
Yeah. So I guess that, being this idea that you have to grind, which is very popular in business and the entrepreneurial world. Actually, when you find yourself grinding, you probably have a bad piece of content.
Yeah.
First, check your list. First check if you got any opens, because if you didn't, either your subject line is terrible or you're reaching out to wrong people.
Yeah.
And if you are completely sure that you reach out to everybody that made sense and your pitch is great and you got the opens and you didn't get the replies or any links, then that piece of content is not good. And if you do keep doing that for a year and you build 10 links, that piece of content is still not good.
Yeah. Yep.
So I guess that's how I would look at it.
Yeah. And then do you try to tie that back to anything else like rankings or
yes.
Yeah, traffic and yeah, what do you look at there?
Well, I guess that it really depends on our clients. Like I said earlier, we work with in-house SEO teams. Mm-hmm. So for all of them, the links we build mean different things. In most cases, they're clients that are in very competitive spaces. Mm-hmm. So for them they are on top and they want to stay on top. And there is no, big growing from the beginning. We have actually one client it's very exciting because it's a new website, and it was such a great opportunity for us to see what happens with a new website.
Clean slate,
and,
yeah.
Yeah, it was just great. And let me just open Ahrefs just to have a look. Mm-hmm. We did our one test campaign, and just after the test on a website that was created within last year, we ended up helping it push and rank. Let me see how many keywords. Oh, my computer is so slow right now.
No worries. Well, you're loading that up. I'm going to give both of us chatting and the listeners about a 2-minute warning. I am giving an interview in 5 minutes for the My Wife Quit Her Job podcast. So need to make sure I'm ready for that. So if anybody listening to this has heard of that show or not, go and look it up and check it out. Maybe by the time you hear this, I'll be on that show as well. My Wife Quit Her Job. Very charming name for that podcast. Okay, what do you have there? Yeah,
so just to show you, just to say it. So the site started in February 2018, and we did our first campaign around June. Mm-hmm. And the site right now, it's receiving the organic search traffic is like 200K.
Wow.
And we are the only link builders working, right?
That is incredible.
And they're creating amazing content. They have a solid technical SEO strategy.
Yeah.
Their website it's fast, it's great. The landing pages are great, but the links, they help them get there, and that's what we're looking for. We're looking to see that happening.
That's really awesome. Thanks for sharing that little case study there at the end. I think that it really helps close the loop on everything. Gisele, this has been a fantastic episode. I think the stars really aligned because, as you know, when we began, we had some computer troubles. They literally were power washing the windows 3 feet away from me on the outside of my windows here. Right when everything worked and we hit record, I don't know if you could hear on your end, it all stopped and they just started again like a second ago. They must have went on lunch break or something. So I think everything was working in our favor eventually today. So as we wrap things up, tell everyone where they can find you online, and then if you're going to be out there speaking or virtually giving any webinars or anything like that you want people to find you.
Yes, so I guess the best way to find me is on Twitter. Just search for my name, Gisele Navarro. My Twitter handle is Ich bin Gisele. And then I'm going to be on a webinar with Julie, Joyce, and Paul Madden on May the 14th at 12 p.m. Eastern Time.
Oh, great.
And I tweeted about it, so you can see it if you follow me on Twitter. And I write for NeoMam's blog, so that's neomam.com/blog. And I have an article coming up on muck rack and how we use it internally. Within the next 3 weeks, it's going to come out. So I think it's really good, but then I wrote it, so I can't say that.
Awesome. We'll definitely put that in the show notes, so be sure to send that to me when it publishes as well. Awesome, Gisele. Thank you so much for joining us on episode 105 of Experts on the Wire, and we'll talk to everyone next time.